Good morning, I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche Organization with your daily video update for October 7th, 2024. Well, it was 1 year ago today that war erupted in Southwest Asia. On that day, Hamas militants escaped the enclosed surrounding them in Gaza and attacked Israeli forces and Israel as a whole. The result was 1,200 killed, more than 240 hostages taken. It was admitted later by the Israel Defense Forces that at least a portion of the 1,200 killed were killed by Israeli forces under the Hannibal Directive, which says that Israel should not allow its citizens to be taken hostages to be traded for release of Palestinian prisoners. Now, immediately, Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, promised vengeance, and on that he has delivered. At least over 41,000 Palestinians have been killed, many of them children, and that's in Gaza, more in the West Bank. But his other promise to annihilate Hamas not only has not succeeded, but it looks as though it's going to take a much longer war, as was acknowledged by Israeli military in the beginning. As to the cost, well, it's costing the United States tens of billions of dollars. It's costing the United States its credibility in world affairs. Now, he also promised to return the hostages, but there are 100 or so still held by Hamas. And instead of negotiations, he killed the chief negotiator, Ismail Haniyeh. Hardly a position for negotiations. The war has now been extended into Lebanon with the murder of Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah. The officials in Lebanon acknowledge about 2,000 people killed by the IDF attack. Now, Netanyahu told the U.S. Congress and the UN General Assembly that he will continue the war until Hamas and Hezbollah are annihilated and will punish Iran. And this is a prescription for a broader regional war in which Israel would call on the United States to come in to back them up. This would lead to a regional war, possibly even World War III, as Israel last week bombed a Russian base in Syria. For Netanyahu, this is a get-out-of-jail-free card. And when the war ends, he faces corruption charges, possibly years in prison. His strategy is keep the wars going, and in the meantime, become popular for winning the wars. There are many questions that come up around this whole situation, but there are two of note. The first is, how did Hamas succeed in breaching Israeli security? Clearly, the Hamas was driven by years of anger over Israel's occupation of Palestine, the lack of freedom, the economic misery, the fact that Israel controls such things as who goes in and who goes out, tax collections, water and fuel deliveries, and so on. So there was plenty of anger on the Palestinian side. But it's clear there were warnings. Israeli intelligence was picking up warnings that Hamas was planning something. And Israel has an incredibly high level of security and surveillance at the border. So there's no full report yet, although there are many intimations that either Israeli intelligence was complacent or complicit, in which case Netanyahu took advantage of the situation, whether it was organized by Israel or not, to protect his position and to carry out a genocide against the Palestinian population. The second question, why will the U.S. not intervene? And this is where you see the problem of a bipartisan consensus in the U.S. Congress for war. It is an expression of the control to which the Military-Industrial-Financier Complex war hawks control the Congress. along with the Zionist lobby, which has a tremendous amount of influence, especially because of money. But what is the ultimate goal for the United States? Why allow these wars to continue? To protect the unipolar order, to stop the BRICS. And that brings me to what happened on October 4th, very important development. Putin addressed a Russian Security Council meeting, and he opened by calling for discussion of, quote, measures for establishing an international payment system, unquote. And he said, work is progressing on this. We need to discuss steps needed to, quote, overcome the difficulties that are being created outside our borders for us, unquote. What does he mean by an international payment system? To escape the sanctions regime that are part of protecting the unipolar order, the U.S. hegemon. And the Russians are working with the BRICS nations and many other nations now to escape the control of the unipolar order. The focus for Putin and Russia is physical economic development that will benefit the global majority. And this is why there's a Ukraine war to weaken Russia, why there's a war in Southwest Asia, because Iran is a member of the BRICS, so are other countries in the region. And it's an attack on this breakaway into a new strategic and economic development architecture. Now, Putin's comments bring up a memory of events from 38 years ago, October 6th, 1986. On that day, there was a deployment of 400 armed personnel to the home where Lyndon LaRouche was living. The intention of those 400 paramilitary and military operatives was to kill Lyndon LaRouche. Now, what was his crime? Well, he was not going along with the oligarchical plans for world order. In a sense, this is what was summed up in Julian Assange's speech last week, where he said he was attacked for being a journalist, for reporting on the crimes of the establishment. And certainly for LaRouche, part of the animus towards him came from his uncanny ability to expose the intention, the why, the policies were being adopted by Kissinger, by Brzezinski, by the Bush family and others, that they were protecting a collapsing global order, a security system and an economic system. It was a Malthusian imperial order of looting backed by endless wars. And LaRouche was an opponent to that. Not only an opponent, exposing it, but organizing an alternative architecture. Lyndon LaRouche and his wife Helga Zepp-LaRouche traveled the world, spoke at conferences everywhere to discuss the potential for a break from the International Monetary Fund system, the central bank system, in which the benefits of the private financial organizations were placed ahead of the economic security and protection of the population of sovereign states. Now, LaRouche's ideas have support all over the world, and we see a reflection of this in Putin's discussion of a new international payment system. We see it in the creation of the BRICS Bank, the new development bank. We see it in terms of the trade in national currencies, which moves countries outside of the dollar system. And we're seeing it in terms of the construction projects, the transportation projects, the energy projects, the water and power projects that are part of the Belt and Road Initiative of China, which are extended into Africa, into South America, and throughout Asia. And the response from the oligarchy: censorship, assassination, sanctions, and war. That's the only response they have. Endless war to protect endless looting. Now, as we see in Ukraine and Southwest Asia, they can kill many people, including many of their own people, which obviously they don't care about. But you can't kill an idea. And it's LaRouche's idea which is taking hold and which needs defense and mobilization. And I'll be appending in the links in the description section for you to see what our movement is doing to realize these ideas and why we need your support, because no one else is going to do it. It's up to us to stop the killing and to create a new mutually cooperative international economic system that benefits all people in all sovereign nations.